Welcome back to BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and to another podcast. Today we continue our study of the Gospel according to Mark. We're in chapter 6, verses 35 through 38, which reads, "When it was late in the day, his followers came to him and said, 'No one lives in this place, and it is already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the countryside and towns around here to buy themselves something to eat.' But Jesus answered, 'You give them something to eat.' They said to him, 'We would all have to work a month to earn enough money to buy that much bread.' Jesus asked them, 'How many loaves of bread do you have? Go and see.' When they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish." That's Mark chapter 6, verses 35 through 38. Today we return to our study of Mark chapter 6, where the Lord Jesus has just expressed his compassion toward the huge crowd that had made such a huge effort to run around the lake 8 miles to get to where the Lord Jesus and his disciples had gone. We are told by Matthew the Lord Jesus saw the crowd as sheep without a shepherd. Sheep need a shepherd. They will die without a shepherd. They can't feed themselves, nor can they protect themselves. There are times when they somehow end up on their backs and are unable to get back on their feet. They are always in need of someone to clean them and pick the bugs and the thorns out of their wool coats. They must be led to safe places and protected. Sheep are very dependent animals. In several Old Testament passages, God pictures Israel as sheep without a shepherd. This is the way the Lord Jesus viewed the crowd that day on the banks of the Sea of Galilee, and so he taught them first. Then, even though there were many obstacles, he eventually fed them. Human suffering hurts the Lord. This is what gets him deep down in his gut. Since he is merciful, he feels for and with us when we reach those times of greatest pain and need. He feels the pain when and where we feel pain. He has compassion on our souls, and he has compassion for our physical needs. But he is most concerned about our spiritual needs. And this is why he allows us to venture off into scary situations. He is skillful at using the trials of our lives to hone our heart's ability to see him more clearly and to know him more deeply. In verses 35 and 36 of today's passage, we read, "When it was late in the day, his followers came to him and said, 'No one lives in this place, and it is already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the countryside and towns around here to buy themselves something to eat.'" The disciples came to the Lord Jesus and suggested the crowd be sent away. But the very large crowd was very hungry. Many have estimated that this crowd was as large as 25,000 people, maybe even more than that. In the text, we're told that there were 5,000 men. Only men were counted. The women and the children weren't. So it could have been up to 25,000 people. The place where they were that evening was desolate and lonely. No one lived there. It was an isolated place, and the crowd lacked the capability of feeding itself. In the eyes of all except the Lord Jesus, it was an impossible situation. It is in these contexts that God shows his uniqueness. In verses 37 and 38 of today's passage, we read, "But Jesus answered, 'You give them something to eat.' They said to him, 'We would all have to work a month to earn enough money to buy that much bread.' Jesus asked them, 'How many loaves of bread do you have? Go and see.' When they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. We do well to be aware of the needs that are around us. The two greatest commands in the Bible are love God and love people. It is at this point where ministry truly begins. Most often, people do not care what we know until they know that we care. To their credit, the disciples recognized the need. When we have been trained by the Lord Jesus, we will recognize the needs of others around us. The sensitivity of the disciples to the needs of others had been heightened when the Lord had sent them out on their overnight treks throughout the villages in the area. This is why they not only recognized the needs of the people, but this is also why they brought the needs to the Lord Jesus. After the Lord told them to take care of it, they expressed they were not up to the impossible task. Previously, the disciples had healed the sick and cast out demons of those who had been possessed. Due to how many people there were this particular day, the disciples admitted it would require a year's wages to feed the crowd. The disciples saw the situation as an obstacle instead of an opportunity. Sometimes the Lord puts us in impossible situations in order to open our souls to the greatest of possibilities. And the greatest is we know Him more deeply and we begin to recognize Him more quickly. The Lord Jesus sometimes calls us into a lonely place, knowing full well that we will not have enough natural resources to meet the need at hand. This is a part of His curriculum for us in a given period of time. The wilderness is not necessarily a desert. It may be a lonely place, but it is never without its purpose. And it was springtime, which obviously factors into the whole point of the lessons being taught. Clearly, we have come to a turning point in the ministry of the Lord Jesus. The Lord, at this point, was now expanding His ministry beyond Galilee into the new areas. Consider that the villages of Capernaum and Bethsaida had populations of no more than 2,000 people. Out of this wilderness, the Lord Jesus fed at least 5,000, which was a task that was totally impossible for the disciples. I would say by design. It was good that the disciples couldn't do it all. It was good that they had to be dependent upon the Lord. Stay tuned to tomorrow's message as we will consider how this grand story rolls out. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helping you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.